Each year, more than 5.2 million reptiles are packed into crates and set in motion, crossing borders, climates, and time zones. They are destined for meat markets, exotic pet trades, and conservation programs. But before reaching any of these destinations, they must survive a journey shaped not by speed, but by temperature. Unlike mammals or birds, reptiles don't generate their own heat. Their survival depends entirely on the ambient temperature around them. They are cold-blooded, yes, but more precisely, they are thermally reactive systems whose metabolism rises and falls with every change in their environment. Transporting them is not like hauling cargo. It's like trying to carry a flame without letting the wind touch it. In a closed container, the heat doesn't just fluctuate, it moves in invisible waves, radiating from the metal walls of the trailer or van, from sunlight filtering through plastic lids, or from the compact mass of the animals themselves. Inside, one corner might sit at a survivable 25 degrees, while the opposite end dips below critical metabolic function. And because reptiles don't pant or sweat to regulate their body temperature, even a small delay at a checkpoint, a cloud passing over the sun, or a change in altitude can trigger a cascade of physiological consequences. Their bodies begin to shut down, not dramatically, not with sound, but cell by cell, heartbeat by heartbeat. To understand the precision this demands, think of agricultural sprayers. Those machines that atomize fertilizer at a micron level, adjusting pressure, viscosity, and spray angle in real time, based on the weather and terrain. Now take that same logic and apply it to a living creature whose survival hinges on keeping a 2-degree temperature range stable for up to 36 hours. A reptile crate must do what a sprayer does: react instantly to the environment. But unlike sprayers, most crates are passive containers, still built with the assumption that the average trailer temperature is enough. But average doesn't save lives. Average is a number. Survival depends on the delta, the difference between a reptile's core temperature at the time of loading and what it becomes halfway through the journey. That delta is often more predictive of stress-induced death than any thermostat reading inside the truck. And yet it's a metric rarely used in logistics protocols. Why? Because it's harder to track, harder to simplify, and it doesn't fit into a checklist. Meanwhile, in cryogenic fuel logistics, thermal control is everything. A few seconds of exposure to incorrect ambient conditions can destabilize entire loads. That's why those tankers calculate per-second thermal curves, not just averages. They model the behavior of the fuel over time, under vibration, with altitude and motion. Shouldn't we offer the same to a living system? Reptiles don't just need to be kept cool or warm. They need micro-regulated environments where temperature isn't just controlled, it's synchronized with their biological expectations. Because in transit, what kills isn't cold or heat, it's imbalance, delay, ignorance of a fact that logistics in other industries have long embraced. That stability, not temperature, is the true currency of survival. And so the question remains: if we've developed precision systems to transport milk, vaccines, and fuel with millimeter accuracy, why are reptiles still treated as if they were inert freight? Let's open the crate. Let's go inside the journey and see what it really takes to keep cold blood alive. It's easy to think that if a crate has air holes, it has ventilation. But air is not just about presence. It's about movement, exchange, and chemical balance. Inside high-density reptile shipments, oxygen is rarely the first issue. The real threat is something quieter, harder to detect, and far more lethal over time: carbon dioxide accumulation. In confined spaces, CO2 released through reptilian respiration quickly saturates the air, displacing oxygen, altering pH levels in the blood, and slowly impairing the animal's ability to regulate its own metabolism. The crates may look functional, even generous in space, but if they are not designed for CO2 clearance, they can become static chambers where every breath makes the next one harder. Most current containers follow an outdated logic, measuring ventilation by volume, not by gas exchange rates. The result is hypoxia in slow motion, especially in larger-bodied reptiles like pythons and monitors. When multiple animals are stacked for transport, the lower crates become CO2 basins. The gases sink, accumulate, and remain trapped in microclimates that escape detection by standard airflow tests. What's needed is not more space, but smarter space. The breakthrough has come from an unlikely place: insect breeding labs. There, passive diffusion systems are used to keep CO2 levels from affecting larvae development. These micro-vent panels, small, semi-permeable grids that allow for molecular exchange without active airflow, have now been adapted for reptile transport. When embedded into crate walls at pressure-sensitive zones, they create continuous gas release points. No fans, no power, no sound, just chemistry, architecture, and time. The numbers are clear. In side-by-side studies, reptiles shipped at a moderate 24% in poorly ventilated crates had higher mortality than those kept at slightly higher temperatures but with balanced CO2 dissipation. It's not that heat was safe, it's that stale air was worse. Temperature alone is never the full picture. Without proper airflow design, even an ideal climate can become toxic. This inversion of expectations, where warmer conditions become safer simply due to gas balance, challenges one of the core assumptions of cold-blooded transport. In the Mekong Delta, a reptile exporter tested an alternative. Drawing on airflow designs from poultry hatcheries, where eggshells must breathe during incubation, he installed lateral grid systems into python transport containers. Within a single season, transit mortality dropped by 31%. Not by refrigeration, not by medicine, by giving the air a place to go. The takeaway isn't just technical, it's conceptual. Reptile transport must be designed around CO2 clearance per kilogram of live mass, not just air inlets per box. This means recalculating crate design by metabolic output, adjusting for the slower respiration rates and lower ventilation reflexes of cold-blooded organisms. It means thinking of ventilation not as a static feature, but as a dynamic relationship between biology and architecture. When a reptile is enclosed in a crate, it doesn't cry out. It doesn't claw at the walls. It simply begins to fade, not because of violence, not because of hunger, but because the air around it, molecule by molecule, has turned against its body's rhythm, and that failure is entirely preventable. Transporting cold-blooded life isn't just about keeping it alive. It's about engineering the space it breathes in, moment by moment, breath by breath. Inside a moving truck or airplane hold, the noise is relentless. Vibrations coursing through steel, lights flickering with electrical rhythm, tires transferring tremors through every crate bolted to the floor. To humans, these are background sensations. To reptiles, they are a barrage. Cold-blooded animals do not respond to stress like mammals. They do not vocalize, pace, or pant. They internalize. Their nervous systems, evolved for silence and stillness, interpret these mechanical signals as threat. And when the stimulation continues beyond their capacity to adapt, the response is not panic, it's shut down. This phenomenon is known in neuroethology as tonic immobility, a freezing of muscular and neural function triggered by environmental overload. Reptiles exposed to continuous low-frequency vibration often exhibit reduced muscle tone, slowed heart rates, and a halt in digestive activity. When combined with erratic lighting, flashes from streetlights, overhead cabin fluorescence, or on-off loading zones, their sensory systems are pushed into a loop of disorientation. They do not adjust. They retreat internally into a state of stasis that appears calm, but masks physiological distress. The solution begins not with restraint, but with simulation, by designing transport containers that mimic natural cues. Dusk, dawn, stable substrate resonance. Engineers have begun to counteract this sensory assault. One of the most effective developments is the bioacoustic crate, a structure lined with vibration-dampening polymers that absorb engine frequencies, paired with LED arrays that emit slowly shifting light spectra. These systems do not silence the world, but they translate it. They turn chaos into continuity, allowing the reptile brain to recognize a rhythm it was evolved to trust. Performance studies show the impact clearly. Geckos and iguanas transported in bioacoustic environments retained 37% higher feeding response after arrival compared to those shipped in traditional containers. Feeding is not just a metabolic marker, it's a neurological one. It signals cognitive readiness, internal stability, and return to homeostasis. These are not aesthetic upgrades. They are functional corrections to a transport logic that has long ignored the brain-body interface in ectothermic animals. In Bogotá, a reptile logistics operator applied neuroethological modeling to his container interiors. Instead of focusing on insulation or padding, he recalibrated crate surfaces to reflect expected tactile feedback, reduced harmonic resonance through base plates, and replaced overhead lamps with gradient LED systems. The result? A 45% reduction in stasis symptoms among exported iguanas. The animals arrived more responsive, with lower cortisol equivalents, and faster return to locomotion. The insight is simple, but revolutionary. Crate design must not reflect human convenience. It must reflect what the reptile brain expects to experience. Light should not flicker. Vibrations should not echo. The tactile feel of the floor must approximate natural substrates. Every element, from wall opacity to ambient sound, must be considered a sensory input. Because for these animals, perception is not passive. It is regulatory. A reptile in motion is not just cargo. It is a system reacting to every second of its environment. And if that environment is misaligned, even slightly, it can trigger a shutdown that no external intervention can reverse. The goal of reptile logistics is not just to protect bodies. It is to preserve behavioral integrity, to build crates that do more than contain. They must communicate safety at the level of the nervous system itself. Before we move on, take a second to scroll down and check the pinned comment. There's something there we've prepared, especially for those who appreciate the precision, the engineering, and the invisible effort behind moving life across continents. It's not just interesting, it might actually surprise you. Modern poultry systems adjust airflow, lighting, and feeding in real time, by species, age, and even behavior. It's a responsive ecosystem where the animal shapes the environment. In reptile transport, however, crates remain largely passive, built on fixed assumptions rather than biological needs. But a reptile is not inert cargo. It is a metabolic system shaped by thermoregulation, neural response, and micro-environmental cues. Transporting it safely means more than keeping it warm or cool. It means replicating, as closely as possible, the conditions its body understands. Stable airflow, gentle vibration, dim light, and controlled temperature gradients. Singapore's amphibian freight hub already applies this logic. Containers there are zoned by species, fitted with telemetry sensors, and connected to routing software that adjusts the path based on internal crate data. When a python's core temperature rises beyond tolerance, the system doesn't wait. It changes the route. Automatically, the animal's physiology dictates the logistics. This approach redefines reptile transport. It's not about comfort, it's about regulation of temperature, gas exchange, and neurobiological integrity. Crates should function less like boxes and more like mobile microhabitats, tuned to the life inside them. The principle is simple. If poultry houses calibrate their environment to the bird, why should reptiles, arguably more sensitive to external conditions, travel in generic containers? To move a reptile is to move a living equation, one that demands not just protection, but precision. And the tools already exist. All that's needed is to apply the same intelligence we've built into farms, into the crates that carry cold blood across the world. And before you go, there's something we don't want you to miss. Check the pinned comment. It's worth a look.